Well, hey guys, welcome to the Hunter's Quest podcast. This is your host, Hunter McWaters, and today I have a fun episode with a guy I met this year at the Western Hunting Expo. He's got a huge personality, a big heart, really good guy. His name is Maddie Nelson, and Maddie works for Seekins Precision out in Idaho. And, if you've been listening for a while, you may have heard me talking about Seekins. It's this beautiful rifle I got here behind me. Like I said, they're based out of Idaho. I think they outsource some of their triggers, but everything else is like completely made in-house, held to the highest standards of quality, have a great reputation, and they've really just kind of blown up lately. My experience with them has been amazing so far as their customer service as well as the rifle itself. And like they have this warranty where like literally if you break the thing yourself by doing something dumb, they will still replace your parts and pieces in your whole rifle if you need it. So they've really just set themselves apart in the industry as a leader in quality and, again, that warranty and customer service. I tried pretty much every rifle I get my hands on when I was at the expo, and I just kept coming back to that Seekins booth, and Matty was a really cool guy to talk to, and just they had a great reputation, so I did end up going with Seekins Precision. So, they're a great rifle to look into if you're in the market for a new rifle, but in this episode, I sit down with Maddie, who's like their director of marketing, but he's also just a really interesting guy. He's extremely knowledgeable about shooting and rifles. He's a special forces veteran from the Army. Tons of experience there. He does some training with Hat Creek training in long range rifle stuff. Just a very interesting guy. Also, he's a spiritual guy, a man of faith. So, we have a great conversation about life, about faith, about shooting, about Seekins. We hit a lot of really cool topics. I think you guys will really enjoy this episode. And he's just a very entertaining guy to talk to. So, I got a verse for this one for Maddie because, one of the things it says on his Instagram bio, which I kind of asked him about, was he says, stand for something. So, immediately the verse came to my mind was Ephesians 6:13, where Paul says, therefore take up the whole armor of God that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, stand. So, and then the next verse actually starts with stand therefore. So he repeats that 3 times there, stand. And we talk about, defining what your life, your morals are, and what you stand for in life. And then being unapologetic and brave about standing for those. And, right now is a perfect time where, we need to stand up for what's right, stand up for our rights, but also realize that doesn't mean we can't have dialogue with people from different cultures, different faiths, different beliefs. We need to be able to show the world that we can have our beliefs and not water them down and stand firm in them, but still, love our enemies and that kind of thing. So anyway, we have a great conversation. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. If you are in the market for a rifle, I would highly recommend checking out Seekins Precision. You'll definitely be seeing this rifle in probably most of my hunts this year, just kind of getting used to it, and I picked it up for an elk tag I have. So enjoy this episode, guys, and if you want to save on some good gear, if you're stocking up for the year, again, I'll just remind you to use the discount codes that are in my description fields. If you need some gear from the Go Hunt Gear Shop, use that code QUEST. Sorry to keep hammering that stuff, guys, but it does help support the show. So, I got to do what I can to pay the bills around here. Also, it's, I have a lot of people who've watched some of my YouTube content or maybe watching some of my YouTube content, haven't subscribed yet. Please just click that subscribe button. Same goes to the podcast. Subscribe to the podcast. Leave me a rating, leave me a review. Anything you can do to help me out. If you're enjoying the content, I work hard to put out good content, to try to be a unique voice in the space and kind of talk to my guests about some unique topics you may not have heard them speak about before. I work hard to maintain a level of excellence, and I'm trying to always do better with that. So if you're enjoying it, if you're enjoying enjoying the message, it's super helpful if you can subscribe, if you can like, if you can, get the word out. Word of mouth is huge. Share with friends and family. Send them episodes that you liked. Send your buddy a YouTube video. Share the film. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's all really helpful. So I will get off my soapbox now. I appreciate your support, especially if you've been out there supporting from the beginning. Tons and tons and tons of cool stuff in the works. God is good. It's going to be an amazing year for the Hunter's Quest. I got some cool stuff I'm working on in terms of content, and then just stuff I can't really get into in detail right now, but just keep your eyes out because it's going to be a big couple years moving forward, and I appreciate your support. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode with Maddie Nelson from Seekins Precision. See you on the next one. All right, so I'm here with Maddie Nelson from Seekins Precision. How you doing, brother?
Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, dude. It's good to connect again. We met at the expo last year, and you probably remember. Like, I came and looked at y'all's stuff, and I just kept coming back. And you're just like, every time I walk by, you'd be like, "Hey."
Yep. Yeah, you were a frequent flyer.
Yeah. I was going around literally because I was in the market. I knew I was in the market for a new rifle because I had an elk tag in my pocket, and me personally, I don't. My backcountry setup is a 6.5 Creedmoor. Mm-hmm. I personally don't want to hunt elk with a 6.5 Creedmoor. We don't have to get into that, or maybe we could later. But
makes sense. So holistically and distance wise, it makes sense. I get it.
Yeah. So I knew I was in the market for a new rifle, so I was just testing, everything out that was there. And I'd heard good things about Seekins from a friend, Brad Hunt, and it's just I don't know, the way the action felt, the big palm swell or whatever. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't get you guys out of my mind. I just kept coming back.
It's tough to beat. It really is. That's one of the things I love about doing those shows is you're not the only one that is there to sample the wares of every company that's there. There's quite a few rifle companies at the Western Hunting Expo, custom builders and production guns and all kinds of stuff. So I tell guys all the time, hey man, cruise around the floor, test everything, go hold everything, right? If it feels good to you, then run it. But it's going to be tough to beat the feel, the fit, form, and function, and the warranty of a Seekins rifle. And that's guys always come back. And we end up just, being able to take really good care of them in the immediate purchase as well as the long term for the life of that rifle. Makes it real good.
Yeah, and just because you mentioned it, and I got to put this on here because I turned it off, but just because you mentioned it, tell me about that warranty really quick, because that is something that's pretty unique about you guys.
It is. It kind of sets us apart in the gun industry, right? A lot of places are sales final, yada, yada, yada. So we have what's called our lifetime warranty, which is if anything happens to the gun, doesn't matter what it is, it could be user induced. You could, I've had guys back over one in a pickup truck. I had a dude send one down the mountain on his 4-wheeler without him on it. I've had, you name it, it's happened. We've had a couple get burnt up in a cabin fire or a house fire. Wow. And we will repair or replace any Seekins part, complete gun, scope ring, doesn't matter. We'll repair or replace any Seekins part for life.
That's awesome.
Which is a good one. And then the other one we have is a shooter satisfaction guarantee, which covers looks to accuracy. Everybody wants to know, hey, what's the MOA accuracy guarantee on your gun? Generally speaking, with just factory ammo on all the calibers and everything we shoot, I do a lot of the accuracy testing here at Seekins Precision. Gas gun, bolt gun, doesn't matter. You're looking at 0.4, 0.5 out of the box as the average. Bolt guns, 0.3, 0.4 right in there with just factory ammo. But I get a lot of trigger time. I get to do a lot of shooting, right? So that helps, but it's too easy for a company to say, hey, this is a 0.5 gun or sub 0.5 gun, slap that sticker on the box. Then the customer can't get it. They call and they say, well, your ammo sucks, or you got bad glass, or you're bad. Click. And that's all I get, right? That's the end of that conversation. So a lot of my day, every day, and Lucas Mattoon and Mike Stilson, who work in our quality control shop here, a lot of our day, every day is talking to guys to be able to ensure that they're doing everything that they can do on their end to get the accuracy that they require out of our gun, which is what our accuracy guarantee is. It will shoot what the end user requires, guaranteed. And generally 99% of the time I can make that happen. Once or twice a year, I'll have to buy one back from a guy. And it's generally not. Generally, it's never the gun. Those guns immediately go into our marketing program, and we shoot the dog crap out of them everywhere. They're super accurate. It's just something about it. We can't make that guy satisfied with the Seekins purchase, and so I'll go ahead and buy that gun back. But 99.9% of the time, I can get those guys talked into, hey, if you want to shoot better groups at 100 yards on paper, maybe knock off the hood of your truck while it's running and 12 dogs in the bed. It's just a thought, right? It's just the method. And I'll pay to have the gun sent back here. I'll shoot it here at Seekins Precision. I'll FaceTime the guys, or I'll video conference them from the range. Like, here's your rifle. Here's your serial number. Here's the groups I just shot. So I'm not saying that it's you, but I'm 100% going to say it's not the gun. So what are the other variables in there? What's your ammo? What's your glass? What are your scope rings? We'll pull the specs up. We'll be sure you're torquing them down correctly. We'll do all of that stuff, walking through every step that we can to ensure that they have the knowledge to be successful and be satisfied with their Seekins purchase. Nice,
man. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been impressed with y'all's customer service. I mean, anytime I had a question, I emailed. We got a pretty quick, email response, or even calling. Like, I think I called and I had a question about the gun, or I think, I wanted to just double check my torque specs and stuff on the rings and stuff. And everybody was super helpful. And also, like, I wanted my stock in Mountain Shadow instead of whatever the other camo pattern is. I can't remember. And they were like, yeah, sure. No worries. We got you.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty cool, man.
That's what's fun about working here. So I run the in-house customer service team and in-house sales team. So if you're calling up here, you're talking to my guys up front. And that's, a lot of companies will say, like, hey, we just, like, the customer's always right. We want to make sure that they're happy and blah, blah, blah. But they don't really stand behind that. Like, I tell my guys all the time, like, that is your only job, is to make the customers happy. You will do whatever you need to do to be sure that they are happy with their Seekins purchase. And they do, they really do that. Like, they have free reign to make sure that that happens, which has been really, really good for the end users. Our customers get to call and have good experiences and get treated right. And, that turns around and brings them back for the next rifle that they want to buy.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So, I mean, I've been super pleased with the rifles so far. I mean, to be honest, it's probably a little more high speed than I am. But it's my first, like, really, I mean, I have a Weatherby that's, like, really nice, but I don't know. It's like the next level up. I'm not saying it's like, I'm just saying, like, yeah, it's high speed. It's a really awesome rifle. It's probably way more capable than I am, but been really impressed with it so far. And so you guys are based in Idaho, correct? And you make pretty much everything in house.
We do, yeah. So we're in Lewiston, Idaho, which is right on the border with, like, Washington and Oregon. It's right where Idaho gets skinny on the map before it makes it onto Canada, right? So really steep terrain, really pretty crazy stuff. We're right at the mouth of Hell's Canyon, so a lot of the design for the hunting rifles, both the Element and the PH2 that we have, came from, us walking around in the woods with guns that we didn't want to walk around in the woods with. So that's where it was a Eli, our lead programmer, Lucas Matuna, our quality control director, and Glenn Seekins were sitting around on the weekend in 2017, and like, man, we don't have a good hunting rifle between three of us. We got a Brazilian dollar machine shop out there. Let's just make one.
Yeah.
And so they did, and it became the flagship of the company because it's fits so many people's needs based off of terrain that they happen to find themselves in, where it's just, it's light, it's compact, it's easy to carry around, and that fits the bill for a lot of guys. On top of it, it's got a bulletproof warranty, and they just flat out shoot. They just shoot really, really well. So
yeah. So I do maybe want to get back into Seekins and stuff like that later, but I just want to back up a little bit because I'm actually really interested just in you personally. You seem like a really cool guy. So tell me a little about yourself, man. Like, tell me about your background, where you grew up and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I grew up in Utah, like middle of Utah, a little bit south of Salt Lake. Really, grew up before it became the suburban metropolis disaster it is now. I grew up, like, orchards were my backyard, and you could get on a mountain bike and ride, 15 minutes through town, and you were up Provo Canyon on your way to Park City on a bunch of single track trails up there. None of that exists anymore. But so I grew up, kind of running around in that worry-free environment where, like, in the summertime, my parents would be like, see you tonight.
Yeah.
I'd be gone doing whatever I was doing. I played sports all growing up through high school, got a really good work ethic from there.
What sports did you play?
I played baseball and basketball, like pretty competitively. I was on a traveling baseball team from the time I was pretty young all the way into
Nice.
high school, and then played through high school, and had a really good time doing that stuff. When I graduated high school, I did a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I went to Brazil and learned Portuguese. I was in the city of Sao Paulo running around in a completely unfamiliar environment because it was just
Question there.
Yeah.
Is that missions, are those strongly encouraged, required?
Strongly encouraged is a really good term.
Okay.
So
yeah.
to say that they are expected by the general population is probably a pretty fair statement. Some people go, some people don't go. But it was fun to go, and it's an opportunity in a relatively guarded environment for a young man to get out and do things on his own, right? Like, I got to figure out laundry, I got to manage money because you only get so much per month. You got to have, here's all my bus fares, here's my rent, here's the food that we got to buy.
Yeah.
But all in a relatively, I don't want to say safe environment because you're just cruising around whatever country you happen to be in, but in a protected, guarded environment with good bumper rails, right? You can't really screw up too bad without having somebody come down and be like, hey, we need to learn this a little bit better. We need to manage this a little bit better. Let's get this. So I came back from that. Brazil was like every day was an adventure down there. Big city. You're there for 2 years, walking around in the streets every day.
Now, is your faith still an important part of your daily life?
Yeah, it is. It's a big part of who I am, and it helped really guide me through the decisions that came right after that. I ended up joining the military. I got a little bit tired of college and went into the military on a pretty short contract that doesn't even exist anymore. But halfway through basic training, I had a drill instructor pull me aside and say, hey, you're a little bit older than most of the kids that are here. You're a little bit more mature, and you're in crazy shape. You should go try out for special forces. And I was like, what's that? So did some reading, did some praying, and made the decision to change my contract to an X-ray contract, which is from basic training straight to airborne school, straight to special forces selection. And if you make it, then you're in the Q course for the next year and a half doing your thing. So
is that Army?
Yeah. So I joined the Army, and then I originally just joined like as an 11 Charlie infantryman, which is what you go to basic training for. And halfway through basic, I got pulled aside and changed my contract and really never looked back. Went to airborne school, went to selection, and just really kind of came into, hey, this is what I was made for. I'm really good at this.
For sure. So you were just in shape from your sports background, and just fitness was a big part of your life, or?
Yeah, I took staying in shape. I always wanted to be. I didn't want to be like the big. I tried for a long time to get muscly, and I just can't. I'm a big, tall, skinny dude, and so I figured, well, if I can't put on all this huge muscle and look like some big bodybuilder, then I might as well be wiry and fast. So I got really, really good at running, really, really good at high rep body weight stuff, which happens to line up really well with being physically fit for the military. So I could put a rucksack on my back and go sun up to sundown at a blistering pace, day in, day out, which set me apart physically. And then they do a bunch of mental tests and screening and a bunch of other stuff. And I was lucky enough to get through all of that and get selected. And I went as I chose to be a weapons sergeant, which is an 18 Bravo. And I got to play with anything that went bang. Then you get trained up in all of the tactics and procedures for your little 12-man team that you're going to get assigned to. Foot movements, vehicle, all that stuff. So you're responsible for quite a bit as that 18 Bravo, and making sure that your guys are trained properly, they're properly equipped with the weapons they're going to need for that particular mission. How are we getting there? All that stuff. So I got to do that for 10 years, and it was an absolute blast.
Nice.
I don't regret 1 second of it. I was gone 300 days out of every year for the whole time I was in.
Wow.
Between actual deployments and then training, both in foreign countries and stateside, I was gone quite a bit. So I got a lot of time in Afghanistan. I got like almost 3 years over there total time.
Wow.
I got a year and a half in South America. I got all kinds, like in 10 years, because the wife was awesome, and she never made me pick between home life and work life. She said, you run it out, and when it's time to get out, I'll let you know. So we did 10 years.
That's awesome to have that support.
Do
you have kids?
I do. I have 3 little girls. So Yeah, I ended up getting out in 2016, and that it was just a good time. I'd done 10 years. My next reenlistment was going to put me at in-def, which means you have to stay in until you get to 20.
Mm.
And like I had done more in 10 years than most guys got to do in 20, just
Yeah.
because she was such a huge, support system and backbone of her own. And just, kept everything running smoothly stateside, which is, I mean, it's tough. That's a tougher job than being a soldier any day, right? Like she's waiting for that knock at the door or that phone call every day, day in, day out, 300 days out of the year, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough on my wife, just the amount of traveling I'm doing for hunts, and nobody's shooting back at me. So,
yeah, it was a stressful time for both of us. But at 10 years, she was ready to have a husband, be around the house, and have,
for sure.
have a father for the kids. And it was good. I was looking at moving from where I was at, being the apex of what a Green Beret gets to be. Kicking doors down, training indigenous forces, being a force multiplier, being responsible for, hey, here's 300 guys. You got to teach them how to tie their boots, all the way to multi-breach live fire exercises, action combat. Like super, super fun, but had been able to do it enough that it was time to exit where I got stuck in after 10 years, maybe 2-3 more years team time like that. And then I was going to be stuck in staff positions and not being able to do that anymore. And then I'd have to go, another 7 years before retirement of just doing stuff like that, which didn't sound super appealing. So I got out at a really good time.
Did you ever run across or cross paths with my buddy Tier Simac?
I know the name. So like we crossed.
He's at Black Rifle now. He's an ex-Green Beret.
Yeah. So like I know Evan from both when we were in and then crossing paths when we were out. And it's such a small community. It's hard to not hear of certain guys, particularly ones that have gotten out and done well on the civilian side. So we've crossed paths somewhere. I'm still playing with a full deck of cards. They've just been shuffled pretty good. I got blown up a couple times and some different stuff. So
wow.
It's good. So I'm still there, but it's all sometimes I get names and faces.
Yeah, no worries, man. Well, dude, thanks for your service, man. That's awesome. And
it was an absolute pleasure. It really was.
Yeah. So were you a hunter before you got in?
I was not, actually. So
okay.
My dad grew up where hunting was a big part of actually getting dinner on the table, and he wanted to grow up without that stress because he was the oldest kid in his family, and that put a lot of stress on him. Be like, hey, we're not eating tonight because old Steve didn't bring home something to put on the table. So his whole goal was like, hey, I don't want to ever, like, I have the ability to, but I don't ever want to put that same level of stress on myself or my kids ever again. So I didn't really grow up hunting. My dad doesn't enjoy it. He's absolutely capable. Just, got out of it for good reason. And I didn't get into it very much. I really didn't even get into it until I moved to Idaho. I got out of the military in 2016. I contracted for the Air Force, doing a bunch of really fun stuff for them for about a year, doing it was all their pilots, all their soft pilots going to the 6SOS or a couple different places.
Yeah.
So I trained them how to drive, how to shoot, how to do land nav, how to do some really fun stuff. And then we were just looking for a way to get back out west. I grew up in Utah. My wife grew up in Utah. We wanted to get back to the mountains. Florida was awesome, but it just wasn't home, right?
Flatistan.
Yeah, we made it home, but it wasn't home, right? So yeah, we lived in Crestview in the Panhandle, which is like the highest point in Florida at 211 feet, right? Like, so it was good to move to be back out in the mountains, and the job at Seekins, right time, right place. Super lucky enough to be able to interview with Mr. Glenn Seekins and fill a gap that they needed, and be able to continue to be a force multiplier now for Seekins Precision. It's awesome.
Yeah, for sure, man. So so you got into hunting and moved out to Idaho. Now I'm not comparing hunting with military service, but do you find that it kind of, I don't know, how do you say it, like scratches some of the itches of like doing some of your old stuff, or like
getting that? So like hunting for me now is very much just a way to disconnect and get back to like how man was originally designed.
For sure.
Right. Like you're going to go out and you're going to be a provider for your family. So being able to disconnect, turn the phones off, get out of cell service, get up in the mountains, be on a horse or be on foot and move around, being quiet, doing the things that tactically makes sense if you're deployed somewhere. That does help scratch some of the itch. Funny enough, like pulling I was talking about this with a friend of mine on a different podcast, Johnny Mack, and we were talking about.
You say Johnny Mack?
Yeah, Johnny Mack.
Oh, I know Johnny. That's cool.
Yeah, good dude. So I was talking with him a couple of days ago about differences between like pulling the trigger deployed and pulling the trigger on an animal. And deployed, I tried to be specialized enough that like if I showed up in your neighborhood, like there was a reason. I wasn't there by accident. Like you were a bad dude, you'd cross the line somewhere in an egregious enough manner that I was there to bring you back to somebody or put you in the dirt. When I go and shoot an animal, there's such a different respect for that animal. Right, like that's an animal that has existed on its own. It didn't. It's
not an enemy.
Violate some statute of the United States that dictated like you got to go right.
Yeah.
So it's a way more like spiritual might be a bit of a strong word for it, but it's like I have a lot more pause pulling the trigger on that animal than I ever did in service. Like in the service afterwards, yeah, like that. In the moment, it was never that. That's what you were trained to do. That's what you were there to do, and that was the mission that needed to get done. Afterwards, like laying on your rack or whatever post-op, there's somebody that's just as loved as I am. That's never going back home. Right? That's a dad. That's a son. That's a brother. That's made enough bad decisions and put enough people at risk that he had to go, and that would weigh on me deployed. Stateside, that's not like that at all. When I go to shoot an animal, there's such a deep respect for God's creation, right? Like that amazing creature that is there, that was designed to feed and provide, for us, right? That's what that's the purpose. That's what it's there for. And I feel almost bad for people that don't get that same connection and that respect. And almost is enough to keep you from squeezing that trigger if it wasn't for the fact that, hey, that's a blanket that's going on my daughter's bed. That's meat that's going in the freezer that we're going to eat for the next year. Like an elk is a big animal. You get a lot of meat off of that. So people that don't get that same spiritual connection from hunting, I feel I pity them because it's a very unique, very spiritual experience because you're doing what man was intended to do from the beginning, which is pretty cool.
Since you brought that up, I've kind of always been interested. It's kind of a sensitive subject, so I don't always ask people about it. But well, first of all, let me ask with a preliminary question. Do you experience any type? Well, I'm not even going to say target panic, but when you're hunting, you get the adrenaline rush, right?
Like, yeah, for sure.
And people can call that target panic or buck fever, or you can just say it's a spike of adrenaline and your heart's just jacked.
Yep.
Is there a similar reaction physiologically on deployment stuff?
Yeah, there is. You're at such a high operating tempo over there that you're particularly when you're in some of these more elite units where you're kind of out on the devil's doorstep all the time. You're constantly in that fight or flight mode. You're always peaked. You're always in the red, and that adrenaline becomes something that is.
But like when that target pops out, is it like
there it is? You get that immediate spike.
So what kind of stuff do you have to, or like how do they? So this is something that translates well into the hunting world. Like how do you deal with that, or how did they train you to deal with that?
So the biggest one is when you get that immediate. Whoop, here it is. Like you kind of get tunnel vision. Everything kind of closes in. And the best way I've found to describe it to people stateside is like, hey, you're driving in traffic and that guy slams on his brakes right in front of you, right? And immediately, all you see is those taillights. You lock right up and you go straight to the brake and you're just boom. You have that same immediate adrenaline dump of fight or flight. Like, oh man, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
But if you take in that instant, realize that that's where you're at, and then open up your vision. Just realize that that's what's happening, and then counteract that tunnel vision. Hey, there's grass right here to the left. There's an open lane here to the right. There's so many other maneuvers that I can make besides just slamming on my brakes and hoping that I don't hit this guy in front of me. It's the same for like same like buck fever or whatever. You get that immediate. Oh, there it is. and everything closes in. If you just take, it's only a quarter second to realize that's where you're at, and then be like, okay, right, and then vision opens back up.
Yeah. And you just did it, like you're breathing. Like, do you have a breath sequence you run through or something like that?
If it's a target that is stationary or moving slowly through the objective, or if it's an animal that's just kind of creeping through the trees, then yeah, I'll breathe in, breathe out. I'll have the trigger prepped. I'm going to fire that rifle at the bottom of my breath cycle when I've all the way exhaled. Most points of contact that I'm going to be able to create with that shooting position, be it in the prone, be it from a tripod, from cover, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll shoot. I'll prep everything and be ready. Breathe in, deep breath in, let that heart rate settle, deep breath out, then squeeze the trigger if the time provides. If it's a whoop, there it is, got to make that shot. Then in that initial, whoop, there it is. I take the time that it takes me to go from wherever my rifle is to that good sight picture. That's the time in which I can realize, okay, I need to open up my vision. I realize that I'm in that fight or flight mode, but let's get all of my senses back aware and just not let that adrenaline run the show. Let's see what's out there. Holy smokes, there's this bull right in front of me, and I missed the guy that was twice the size of him, 2 steps behind him, because I can only see the first guy because I got such tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Right. So in that initial, as soon as you realize you're there, like take that time that it takes just to bring the rifle up. That's all you need to realize, okay, my vision is open, my hearing is turned back on, I'm ready, right?
Yeah.
Use that adrenaline to your advantage versus letting it be a handicap that only focuses on your vision, only focuses on tunnel, and everything gets narrowed down. Use that adrenaline to open back up your senses and let them be highly alert so that you're that much better.
Is there a way you can train for that?
It's the biggest one is knowing that that's what's going to happen, and mentally prepping yourself. Hey, this is what's going to happen when I see that buck, or this is what's going to happen when I see those car lights in front of me, or this is what's going to, right? As soon as I get that fight or flight adrenaline dump or that buck fever adrenaline dump, realize that that's what it is, and then allow it to bleed into your other senses. There's no way to really train for it other than to see it. The most common one is driving. That's when everybody drives every day. They're always around there. And they don't realize they're doing it, but as soon as they hear this, they're going to be in the car 20 minutes later and be like, oh, and hey, that was it. I didn't do it then, but that was it, right? Yeah. Then the next time it happens, they realize, oh, this is it again. And now they start to open up that vision, and that they use that adrenaline to their advantage versus letting it be a handicap.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I could think of is just like do 12 burpees real quick and then try to shoot or something, but it's still not the same.
Yeah, it's not, right? So like,
do they do stuff like that in the military?
Heart rates, yeah, they do. So we'll do a lot of stuff where you're running obstacle courses, and then you're shooting in the obstacle course and doing different stuff. Your heart rate is up. Your adrenaline is up. You're breathing super heavy. You got sweat in your eyes. You're banging stuff around. So that is a good attempt at what real combat's like, but it's not.
Sure.
When you actually get it, it's you recognize like that's training. This is what it feels like.
Yeah,
right? So.
For sure, man. One more name I got to throw at you because I feel like you probably know him. He lives in Idaho. He's ex-Special Forces, and he's in the shooting instruction world. Do you know my buddy Bill Rapier?
Yeah, I know Bill. So we used to train some of the same guys in Florida. So he has a kind of a core group of dudes that will go and do some really unique classes from Bill. And he came down to Florida a couple of times. We met each other a handful of times. And Bill is a stand-up guy, and if you get the opportunity to take one of his classes, like they're always like, we're living off the land, and we're gonna go and we're gonna do a bunch of pistol, carbine, blade training, and then we're gonna take these snowshoes and we're gonna go up into the mountains for 12 days, 14 days, and figure it out, and then we're gonna come back. Like it's super, super cool. Like he touches every gambit of what special forces get to do: land nav preparation, unconventional warfare, usage of materials that are available, foraging, blade training, weapons training, the whole smash. Like Bill is a super, super cool dude. Love Bill.
So Bill was a volunteer in my youth group when I was a kid. And so, like, I met him, like, I was in middle school, and he was active duty at the time. And so I thought he was, I, like, worshipped him. And, like, I used to try to wrestle him, and he would just destroy me. And, obviously.
He is a physicist to this day. He's a physical monster.
Oh, dude. I would, For sure, man. I would never mess with that dude. So anyway, he's a great guy. He's been on the podcast before, and I figured you probably know him. So.
Yeah, he's really cool, dude.
Yeah, man. So okay. One thing I want to ask you about, I like having these kind of discussions with my guests, like stuff that people probably haven't asked you before in a podcast. On your Instagram profile, on your bio, one of the things is like stand for something, right?
Yeah.
What do you stand for?
Such a weird community and nation that we happen to find ourselves caught in the middle of, right? Where differences used to make us strong. Now they mean that for some reason we got to not like each other because you're different than I am. Standing for something simply means like, hey, I have a certain moral standard. I have a certain faith that I live my life by. I have certain codes that I've taken from the military or whatever and applied them to my bones in a lifestyle that I want to live and that I want to have my kids learn from and those around me learn from. And what I mean by stand for something is simply like, man, it doesn't matter what it is. Pick something in your life that is meaningful to you and can be meaningful to others. And then back that up. Stand for it and be that person, right? I used to tell guys like in the Army that I was training or different places, like, man, be the soldier that your mom thinks you are, right? Because if you're doing that, you're doing pretty good, right? Because she's going to tell everybody that you're the best thing that's ever put a uniform on. So try and be that guy. And that's what I mean by stand for something. Take something that is personal to you. Take something that is, whether it be a standard, whether it be, physical, mental, spiritual, weapons training, whatever. Take something and put some effort into it and stand behind whatever it is you choose to make that discipline. And for me, it's hey, I stand behind being a patriot, right? Being a God-loving, gun-toting, Bible-reading patriot. And the morals and the ethics and the things that come along with that. I choose to stand for those in my personal life and be an example to others by standing for those. And that's not everybody's cup of tea. And that, some people find that to be super offensive and some people don't find it to be super offensive. And you cover all aspects of humanity now, but it doesn't matter who you are or what you do. Our differences are what used to make us strong, right? All-American 82nd Airborne got its name because it had troops from all 50 states with a bazillion different backgrounds, different religions, different faiths, different preferences, the whole smash. But those differences put into one cohesive unit made them awesome in World War II. It's the same country. It's the same people. It's the same diversity. We just have gotten away from realizing that, hey, those differences don't mean we have to hate each other. That means we can work better together, actually. So that's what it means.
Yeah, I mean, that's so well put. And like, there's the old saying, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything, and it is a balancing act too, though, because like you said, like now it's like if you want to draw a hard line and say, hey, these are my values, this is who I am, this is what I believe, I'm not backing down on it, and then immediately people, think you're being like aggressive or like against them. It's like, no, I'm not. I don't hate you. I don't agree with maybe your lifestyle, but
not agreeing is a huge difference from hating.
Yeah,
right. Like I don't have to agree with what you think, and you don't have to agree with what I think. That doesn't mean we don't have to like each other, right? I mean, like this happens every day in the workplace, whether people realize it or not. Like you got to go to work with people you don't like, but guess what grown-ups do? Get the job done anyway.
Yeah.
Right? And then they go out and have beers afterwards and say, man, I sure can't stand Bob. That guy's a jerk. Right. But at work, you put your differences aside and you get the job done that needs to get done. Right.
Yeah.
And in life, there's nothing wrong with a society that doesn't agree on certain topics. And one person has one view and one person has another view. Hatred never has to enter into that. But for some reason, it has infiltrated everyone at a very personal level. And they get super emotional and they get super spun up about some stuff that if they would just take a half a second and take a breath and utilize a little bit more of their senses and think with their brain for a change, they'd realize that it's okay to stand for something and to have your own set of morals and to have your own code of conduct that you want to live your life by, and for somebody else to have a different one. That's okay.
For sure. So I've found in my, my faith walk that it's important to just like with physical fitness, you can't just go to the gym once a week and expect to make any progress or get anywhere. If you want to grow spiritually or walk with God, like it's a daily thing. So, and we're not perfect, obviously there's some days you don't hit it or whatever. And, but how do you, because you've mentioned it a couple of times, how do you integrate your faith in walking that out on a daily basis?
Really, I just try to be, like we talked about, right? Like I stand for those morals and that belief system that comes along with being a Mormon, right? And so I don't tout those in front of people, like, oh, I don't do this or I don't do that. Like I don't try to make a big deal out of any of that stuff. I just live my life by those rules and stand on it, right? Like if I had a nickel for every time somebody would say, oh, we're going to get Maddie to drink today, right? I could have retired a long time ago. But the funny thing is all I have to do, and everybody will test it. Every team I was ever on, every new guy that ever came to a team would always test the waters to see if I was super serious, if I would actually stand my ground. After that initial test, I never had to do it again, ever, right? Like the guys around me would not allow it to happen. Somebody else would come and be like, oh, we're going to get Maddie to drink. And they'd be like, no, Maddie doesn't drink. And then they would ask me and be like, we told you we don't drink, right? Like I would have guys coming to my defense for my moral standpoint. And I never had to confront guys about it because I stood my ground the one time, which helps. The other one is I kind of fall back on a lot of military experience, right? You got to do a lot of land nav as a Green Beret. You're always wandering around the woods, half lost somewhere. And there's only one person that came down here and walked a straight line azimuth through life, right? Like never sinned, never made a mistake. Like here it is. I'm going to walk this 28-degree azimuth, nose to tail, beginning to end. And that's what he did.
Set his face like flint.
Right? Like, and went. Humans like us here, our travel is more like terrain association, right? So if you're familiar with land nav, there's two ways to do it. You can dead reckon, which is you shoot an azimuth on your compass and you walk that azimuth, right? Cliff in your way, you're never gonna deviate from that azimuth. But if the longer the distance, the more impractical and impossible it becomes to walk from point A to point B and never deviate from that azimuth. It's impossible, right? Because
if you're off like half a degree over a 50-mile radius, you're gone.
Yeah, you're in Arkansas instead of Kansas, right? Like it's you're not even close.
Or you never see dry land; you just keep going on the ocean.
Yeah, straight up. So it's terrain association, however, is much easier, right? So hey, I have a river on my left, and I have this ridge line on my right, and they both run pretty parallel and in the same direction as the point that I'm trying to get to. So I don't have to walk this dead azimuth of 18 degrees or whatever. I can say, hey, I'm going to point that way to start. And if I start drifting to the left, I'm going to run into the river. And if I start drifting to the right, I'm going to run into the creek. So I make kind of an S pattern all the way up there, which is like distance-wise, yes, it's a little bit longer. Speed-wise, it's way faster. Even though I'm traveling a greater distance by veering off a couple of degrees here and there and maybe bumping, they call them handrails, right? Maybe bumping into my handrails as I go. But I can travel at such a greater speed that I can get to my endpoint faster than if I just hyper focused on an azimuth on a compass and kept walking into thorn bushes, right? Yeah. So nobody's perfect, like you said. But if I can continue forward movement in the azimuth that I know is correct, with handrails on my left and my right? Like I know this is a moral boundary that I'm going to uphold in my life, and I know this is a moral boundary that I'm going to uphold in my life, and I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm not gonna deviate. I'm not gonna pass those boundaries because then I will truly be lost, right? But within those boundaries, I'm able to make mistakes, to correct my mistakes, to wander off that direct azimuth just a little bit, but still end up where I want to be in the end.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said about you fall off the horse, just get back on quick, repent, and just don't dwell on it. Just keep going. Yeah,
and like. I think Christianity or like as a whole has kind of gotten a dim viewpoint on repentance, right? Like, oh, we did something terrible, and they have this big guilt trip, and like, no, man, it's a daily thing. It's okay. Like, it's part of the plan. God didn't put people down here and be like, whoa, man, didn't see that one coming, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
yeah, look at King David. He was a man after God's own heart, and he basically
yeah,
murdered someone, committed adultery,
yeah,
but
like
he was able to get
the
back on the
top
horse quick.
two, right?
Yeah.
Of the rules, he broke the top two.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's all about like realizing that you're close to your handrails, or even if you've crossed one of those handrails, getting back to where you need to be, and then just continuing that forward movement. And that's how I apply it in my daily life, and it's worked out so far. So
Yeah. Yeah, man. One more like spiritual question that just popped up, and then we can kind of move on. But I feel like, so I have like several Mormon friends or members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I know that's how you're supposed to say it, but it's just easier to say Mormon.
it's way yeah. When it came out, I was like, man, that's a lot for people. Like Mormon is pretty fast.
Yeah. But I feel like as a church, as a religion, however you want to say it, you guys have done a really good job of, I don't know, keeping people between those moral boundaries. Like, I feel like a lot of my friends who are Mormon are like, really good people, and like stay in those boundaries better than like a lot of the, quote unquote, like mainstream Christian or whatever Christian people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think it is about Mormons that like you guys have figured that out, or like you're able to keep your kids in line better or something? Like, what is that?
I don't know. I think some of it is like so like people that know Mormons, like, hey, they don't drink, they don't do this, they don't do that. There's a lot of stuff that may be viewed as a little bit restrictive in the beginning. But like an analogy that I like to draw to is like you can't fly a kite without a string. Right? If you want that kite to sail super high and catch the best wind, then you got to have some string attached to it. As soon as you cut that string, it will fly for a while, but it's eventually going to, like, gravity's going to win. It's going to come crashing back down, right? That string is the counterpoint for the gravity that allows that kite to sail high and stay high.
Mm-hmm.
And those rules or commandments or whatever you want to call them are not viewed as restrictive by members of the church, right? They're viewed as that string. Like, hey,
yeah,
if I follow these rules, it's going to keep me out of some pretty big trouble. And that's not saying that, like, there's Mormons that are jerks, and I've met guys like at church in a little community here that I'm like, man, that guy's a train wreck, or whatever, right? Like,
right, of course.
But viewing those as not restrictions, but as, hey, here's some guidelines that are going to, like, some pretty good handrails, or a really solid kite string to keep crossing back and forth from analogies.
Yeah. Because that's true. I mean, it goes back to, like, the laws of God. I mean, yes, in the moment when you want to sin, it might seem restrictive, but like in the long term of your life, because I've been on the wrong road before for a long time, and I can tell you, in the moment, some of that stuff was fun and felt good. In the long view of my life, it was heading me down the wrong path towards death and destruction.
Yeah, right. Like it comes down to the easy ride over the hard wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Choose the narrow path.
What, did I say that wrong? Easy wrong over the hard right. I don't know. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
Listeners will figure it out. But like making the harder decision for the long run versus immediate gratification, and the easy win right now versus, hey, this is the long game, and this is what I want to be. This is what's going to make me a better person in the long run versus the short term, which, short term after short term after short term after short term, you've never made any progress. You've never gone anywhere. And like all we have is time, right?
Yeah.
And the more we waste trying to figure out that short term game versus the long term game, that's how it goes.
And a good analogy tie-in with land nav and with ballistics is like this idea of trajectory. It's like, doing the small right things every single day, because you make tiny little mistake every day. In the course of that day, it's like, no big deal. But if you extend that out, 900 yards or whatever, 9 years, you're going to be getting farther. It's more minutes of angle, right?
Yeah.
So,
that degree never comes back. It only grows if it's not corrected, right?
Yeah.
I deal with this quite a bit doing like ballistics classes and stuff. Guys will put in, like half-assed information into their ballistic computer and then expect great accuracy at long distance. I'm like, guys, that's not
Yeah.
how it works, right?
It might seem good at 100 yards, but you take it out to 1,000, you're off paper.
Right? Like, oh, but I'm good at 1, I'm good at 2, I'm good at 3. You may be good at 6, right? You got a super fast, real clean flying bullet coming out of that gun. That's awesome. But you go out to a grand, you go out to 1,100, you go out to 1,200. Now those little tiny mistakes are magnified by a longer distance, and it's immediately apparent. So paying attention to the small things and applying those small details when you're setting up your gun and when you're putting in all your ballistic information to whatever app or computer you happen to be using, and making sure that data is correct, taking the time to do it and taking the effort to do it will bleed out into accuracy in the end. If you short stroke it and just kind of put in, hey, this is the muzzle velocity off the box, and I'm pretty sure my height overboard looks like, let's say it's 2.5 inches by eye, and let's say I don't know what my twist rate is, so we'll make one up, and that turns into, you're still accurate at 100, 200, 300 yards. Once you get past that, it becomes immediately apparent that it's not the same. So I think that's and talking about like, hey, why do Mormons seem to have their ducks in a row or whatever? Maybe that has something to do with it. Is some of those smaller details are taken into effect maybe a little more seriously, so that as that range gets longer, there's a little less deviation. From true data or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so cool how God, almost every like spiritual principle has like a physical like expression like in the real world, or not the real world, but the physical world. But anyway, that's a really good segue into, I'd love to talk a little bit about, accuracy and precision and stuff like that as far as shooting goes. I know you do a lot of training with Hat Creek, correct?
Yeah.
And, so just to be honest, like me, my MER, I'm keeping it 500 and below. I'm a hunter. I'm not a long range guy. I don't like, if I can get into 200 yards or, less even, that's good. That's my goal. I don't even want to take a 500 yard shot unless I have to. But, so just kind of setting the context, I think, obviously some of my listeners are more long range guys probably, but like, coming from where you maybe a little bit more reside in the long range accuracy PRS world, kind of translating that more into a hunting context. Yeah. What are some of the biggest things that you see hunters that they could do better, or like mistakes, like biggest mistakes, or like quick, best bang for your buck, like ways to improve accuracy in small ways? Yeah.
Okay. So like the military name of the game used to be all about the stock, right? Until like the last couple of years of Afghanistan, if you took up and added up every sniper engagement from World War II to like, 2013, 2012 in Afghanistan, the average sniper engagement was less. It was like 240 yards. Right? That was it. Right. So the name of the game back in the day was the stock. That's what it was about. Now the name of the game is how far away can we get and still log rounds accurate. Right. We're not worried about ethics. We're not worried about some of the other stuff. We're putting rounds on bad guys, and I want to be as far away as possible and do that. That's the name of the game right now. Right. So crossing that over into the hunting side, in order to get these guys to be able to shoot this ridiculous amount of distance that they're shooting today, there's a lot of things that have changed, right? Like kit, gear, glass, reticles, ballistic calculators. Like a lot of this stuff has changed the game. Back in the day, even 10, 15 years ago, you go to the range, you would open up your logbook, you'd be like, all right, it's this temperature today, there's 3 clouds in the sky, I had indigestion on my way to the range, and I lost the sock in the wood line because I ate tacos last night. So you're flipping through this huge logbook of every shot you've ever taken at the range, looking for similar conditions so that you can replicate that same shot at distance with those conditions. Now we have stuff that picks it up real time, right? Here's the temperature, atmosphere, biometric pressure. Here's the humidity in the air. Here's all the stuff, and it's taking that into effect real time and plugging it in to the math that your ballistic calculator is spitting out to you to hit this target at distance, right? So whether it's a Kestrel or like the Fury 5000s by Vortex or the SIG 10Xs, they're taking real time data. If you run it off your phone, it's coming off of the nearest weather station that it can pick up. So it's pretty close to where you're at, right?
Yeah.
So that's changed the game a lot. It's not black magic like it used to be. It's very much, mappable, radar mapped out
Right.
math. This is what it is. This is what's going to happen when you squeeze the trigger mathematically, right? So that's kind of the changes that have made guys be able to get a little more high speed, a little faster, and shoot longer distances on the military side of things. Crossing over to the hunting side of stuff, ethics now becomes a real big conversation, which I have with guys all the time. But there are certain pieces of gear and kit that, if you understand how to utilize them, will make your ethical, clean, accurate shot. You can almost double your distance, depending on, the average guy I talk to is 250, 300 yards, right? You can almost double that if you just utilize a little bit of kit. And there's been some pushback on the hunting world side of things coming into it. The NRL series recently has kind of brought a lot of that to light, where, you have weight restrictions on the gun, caliber, kit, et cetera, et cetera. Some of these PRS guys are coming with, hey, I got my lightweight hunting rifle, but I'm going to take all my PRS kit out there. And they're skull dragging these dudes that are like, well, I've never hunted with a shooting bag, and I've never decided, like, I would never take a tripod out on a hunt. Why not?
Yeah.
Like, this dude's, it weighs 3 pounds. It's not that much. And this dude's over here smashing targets at distance because he can create a better, more stable shooting position and utilize this tripod in a million different ways, not just how people are picturing it right now, right? Like 3 legs all the way extended, shooting off the top of it. You can use it as so much more, right? If you have a fallen log in front of you and your bipod is set up on there, you can use that tripod now as a 2-foot tall rear bag and use it as rear support. You can use it as like its own traveling shooting bench. Keep 2 legs short, extend 1 leg super long, and now you have a shooting bench that you're traveling around within the woods and can create very stable shots from, with just the utilization of a little bit of kit.
Yeah. Well, let me just jump in really quick, because filming my hunts, I always have a tripod. And I think a lot of guys listening to this, with glass and stuff, are also going to be carrying tripods. Like,
yes.
Just real quick, without going like super into the weeds, what do you think is the best way to utilize a tripod? Is it for that rear rest, or like, is it that standard, like you're saying, shoot off it thing?
It will always be dependent on the situation that you find yourself in, right? If it's really tall grass, then you need that height. You got to get up there. If you're shooting in some of the crazy canyon angles that we have, having that ability to shorten 2 legs way up and extend one leg way out now gives you like a big grappling hook shooting bench. You're just hanging onto it on the side of this embankment, but still able to make very accurate, clean shots. So some of it will depend on the situation you find yourself in. A lot of times I'll tell guys, because like the standard argument is, I'll never take that out there because I'm not going to carry the extra weight. Cool. Are you taking a tent? Throw that out. Put your tripod up and put a tarp over it. There's your tent.
There you go.
Right? Save weight somewhere else. If your primary goal is to go out and shoot an animal ethically, get that good shot, get that clean shot, bring it home, put meat in the freezer to provide for your family. Yeah. If that's the goal, why would you limit yourself on how accurate you could be? Mm-hmm. Right? That's the pushback that I get a lot of times. Oh, I'm never going to carry that. Why not? Right?
Yeah. You can get like a nice little 2-pound tripod now, like a carbon fiber, for like $200.
Yeah, they're super lightweight. There's a ton of companies that are making them. They're not hard to come by. They're very lightweight. Oh, they're too slow to set up. Okay, if it's your first time ever using one, I'll agree with that. But why? Like, if it's the first time you're using one, like, that ain't gonna work, right? Yeah. So ethical distance now comes into this the same thing as being a sniper. 20 years ago, it's about the stock. How close do you need to be to that target to mitigate your own shooting performance as well as the environments, right? Wind, rain, et cetera, et cetera. How close do I need to be to eliminate that stuff? But if I have a tripod, man, that's immediately allows me, if I'm only comfortable shooting 250 yards because I'm doing it standing offhand and I have 3 minutes of wobble on the target and I'm trying to time that shot and break it clean, and that's as far away as I think I can get. If I had a tripod to that scenario, even in the standard, typical standing on a tripod, all legs extended, I can go to 500 and still have less wobble than I do at 250 free. Yeah. Right? So it's a piece of kit that is huge for helping guys out. Another one that I see in the hunting world is I shoot with some big scopes, right? Like stuff you can see into tomorrow with, right? So I'm shooting like the 7 to 35 ATAC Rs by Night Horse. I'm shooting the 6 to 36 Gen 3s or the 4.5 to 27 Gen 2s for Vortex, like stuff that has magnification for days.
Yeah.
But I rarely shoot, even at great distances, like training mill guys, shooting steel at 1,200 meters. I still rarely shoot over 15 power. And so a lot of guys in the hunting world, hey, they're chasing that weight, and rightfully so. And so hey, the max I'm never going to shoot over 15 power, so I just want a 15 power scope. But if you think about like what the last time you looked through like one of the scopes I was talking about earlier, right, a Gen 2 or a Gen 3 or an ATAC R, and you were magged all the way up to 30.
Right, you lose performance all the way to the top end.
Or 35, right? You're looking through a very small toilet paper tube. Eye relief is very hard to get, etc. It's the same. If you only buy a scope that goes to 15 power, because you're never going to shoot over 15 power, but then you're always at 15 power to shoot, you still have the same problem with you're looking through a soda straw. Yeah. Where if I get a scope that goes to 20 power, but only go to 15 power, I have such a better field of view, right? Yep. I can see more. I have like eye relief is not so big an issue. I can bring that gun up quickly and accurately and get a good picture of what's going on at 8, 10, 12, 15 power, and have the ability to go to 20 for when I want to zero, but I'm rarely, if ever, going to shoot that magnified in the real world.
Yeah.
Right. That's another one that I find limits guys a lot. Oh, I'm never going to shoot over 15 power, so I want a 15 power scope. Well, now you're redlined. That's all she's got.
Yeah.
If you go more than that, you're not at that red line. You have a better field of view. You have better depth perception. You're not just sucked into this soda straw, and you get that immediate adrenaline dump, and then that soda straw becomes even smaller, right? Yeah. You're able to open up that view, use that adrenaline to your advantage when it happens, and really make a better, accurate shot because you have more to give. You just don't need it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I got a Leupold VX6 4 to 24 in that thing. I like having lots of magnification, and like I said, it's a heavier scope. It's like probably almost 2 pounds, but this is not. I mean, the Havoc Element's already a very lightweight rifle.
Yep.
The purpose behind this build was not to go as light as possible. So, anyway, I love that scope though. And dude, I don't know if you ever shoot Leupolds, but they have this custom dial that you can like order from them. It's pretty sick.
Yeah, they got some really neat stuff, some really innovative stuff that's out there right now. So I get to shoot a lot of Leupold when I'm doing military training. They have a lot of military contracts in SOP. So does Night Force. So most of the stuff that I'm shooting is either Leupold or Night Force when I'm training those guys, and then I get a mix of everything under the sun when we get into the civilian world with hunting stuff. Yeah. But there's a time and a place, right? You always got to ask yourself, like what people tend to forget, I think, is that they don't ever ask themselves what they're giving up, right? If I'm chasing weight and I want the lightest, most absolutely ridiculous light gun possible, what am I giving up, right? They don't ask that question. You're giving up recoil management, right? That gun's going to be a monster to shoot, and you're not going to see what happened after that first shot. So you better have a spotter or someone else, somebody else is going to see what happened, because you're not going to follow. The heavier gun, man, like my recoil is going nowhere, right? I got a 16-pound gas gun that I'm going to shoot, and I'm going to watch that round come out, and I'm going to watch exactly where it hit, and it's easy. However, like I better be hitting the gym, because the con is I got to carry around all this heavy weight.
Yeah.
Right. So time and a place for both. I always come back to like, what is the intended purpose for that rifle, and what is your end goal with that rifle? If your end goal is just to go out and bang steel on Grandpa's back 40, heavier is better.
Yeah, of course.
If your goal is to go out and put meat in the freezer, then we need to start really carefully looking at pros and cons to weight, glass selection, kit you're using, et cetera, so that you can go out and be successful without carrying any extra ounces that you don't need, but that allow you to be super accurate. I'll tell guys, man, if you're worried about carrying a tripod for weight, we can save weight somewhere else.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? We'll do something different in your packing. We'll do like we'll take one pair of socks and one t-shirt. We'll do something different to save that 2 pounds that a tripod weighs, to allow you to be so much more stable, and in the end, so much more ethical in your own distance and ability.
Yeah.
So
that's good, man. We're coming up on almost an hour here. I know you got stuff to do, so I'm not going to hold you too much longer here. But
no worries, man. I'm all yours.
Okay, cool. So just turning it a little bit onto Seekins, you guys are kind of blowing up. Like, like I saw your thing the other day, like you're stopping internet sales. You know, obviously everybody had issues with COVID and stuff like that as far as supply chain goes. But you know, I ordered my rifle, and you guys did a really great job of making sure I got my rifle in time to get it dialed for the season. So I'm appreciative of that. And but still, it you know, it took some time to get it.
Yeah.
Which is not abnormal these days. Are you guys, you know, are you looking to expand your production capabilities, or you know, are you trying to stay small? What's the future kind of look like for Seekins?
So we have right now we're in the middle of action. So last year we did a huge shop extension for all of assembly. We had all assembly smashed in this little tiny area, and it was to the point that it affected our efficiency to get guns out the door. Now we have a huge warehouse where we moved all of our assembly stuff attached to the main warehouse that had all the machines in it. So they run through the quality control program. The quality control program is the first one to grow here at Seekins Precision because we built our name on precision, right? It's Mr. Glenn Seekins' favorite line, right? It's not Seekins pretty close or not Seekins good enough, right? It's precision. So if we're going to double our throughput of products that we're putting out, then we got to have the ability to maintain the quality control that we've started with, so that we don't muddy those waters at all, right?
Yeah.
So we got that up. The quality control is always on point, and then we're adding another 10,000 square feet of shop space out here that will be done in October. So we've already had machines ordered for that one. We got 15 machines coming in. We got like 12 CNCs and 3 lathes. All of them will be robot fed. So we'll be making parts for us around the clock. We're super excited about it. So we'll be more than quadrupling our throughput from a couple of years ago to next year with what we got coming out. So we're super, super excited to be growing. We've made a lot of noise in the industry in not a very long period of time. It's been very fun for me to be on this train. Like the first show that I did, you know, I'd be explaining to 7 out of 10 people coming into the booth, like, hey, we're Seekins Precision. This is what we do. This is where we're from. This is what we make. And now it's the opposite, right? Just in the short amount of time, 3-4 years now, I'm only explaining to 3 people what Seekins Precision is. Other people are coming there knowing I've already heard the name, I've already done my homework, I've researched the guns, like I want to get my hands on them. Let's come and feel it.
Yeah, I hadn't really heard you guys until last year. I'm relatively new to the rifle thing because the place I grew up hunting, it was shotgun and bow only. Yeah. So I'm like a late comer to the rifle world, but really enjoying it. But yeah, I mean, I got a good recommendation, like I said, from my buddy Brad, and then
Brad's awesome.
Yeah, man. You know, did some internet research. You know, obviously got my hands on one. Talked to you, and then like my other really good friend who's kind of helped me get into Western hunting. You know, he's big on all the forums and stuff, and he's ex-Navy Special Warfare, so he's kind of a gun nerd. And I was like, dude, have you heard of Seekins? And almost every single gun company I ever like run by him, he's like, oh yeah, there's a couple lemons in there, man. I'd watch out for those, you know, or whatever. Like I said, Seekins, he was like, yeah, I think I've heard pretty good stuff about them. That's green. So once I did that, I was like, okay. And then getting my hands on one, I was like, yeah. And then you know, I did a video the other day about mounting my scope on there, and I put my alignment tool on my Seekins rings, and it was like spot on right out of the box, and I was like, okay, there's the precision.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, and I've you know, mounted optics with good rings on good rifles before, but still they're usually like a little off. That thing was like money. But my question that's buried in there, it's kind of a selfish question, but I maybe stupidly, not sure, but I did lap my rings a little bit, even though the alignment was fine. Did I make a mistake there?
Generally speaking, so we hold our ring tolerances to like less than half an eyelash width. I mean, they're very, very strict tolerances for our rings. It's not recommended by us that you hand lap them because that tolerance is so tight. But if you did, it's okay. You're not hurting them by any means. So it's not a big deal. But yeah, generally speaking, right out of the box, they're good to hook, particularly if you're putting like more high-end glass on there where, you know, concentricity of scope tube is a big deal. A lot of times what we'll see is guys will be like, hey, your rings don't line up very good. It's like, yeah, well, like what scope are you buying? Oh, it's the Walmart blue light special, like concentricity of that tube is like an 8, right?
I can't imagine dropping the money on a Seekins and putting like a Walmart Tasco or something on there.
I mean,
You get everything.
Where people decide to save money sometimes makes me giggle, but it's
I mean, I hate to say this, but you'd be better off with good glass and a crappy rifle.
Yeah, right. Like if you're gonna limit yourself, don't limit yourself on glass. Don't limit what you can see.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, no, it's okay if you did, but the tolerances are.
Yeah, I was
right out. Every set of scope rings comes serial numbered, so there's only 2. If you take next time you take them off, look at the bottom. The serial numbers line up. There's only 2 of those that are made. They're specifically matched up. The quality control tolerances that we run through them. So we do like 9,000 sets of rings a month, and 1 in every less than 30 rings goes through the quality control department. So if there ever is an issue, it is caught within 30 rings.
Okay. So I didn't need to lap them, but I didn't screw them up.
Nope, you didn't need to lap them. But if you were super aggressive about it, then I'd be like, let me get you another set in the mail and we'll get you taken care of. But if it was just a little bit, you're fine. No big deal.
Okay. I'll keep an eye on it. Maybe after season, I'll pick up another pair or something.
No worries.
Or I can use that warranty and just send them to you.
Right? Yeah. That's what it's for, right? Like you would not be the first to be like, hey, I took a Dremel to this, and so what happened was like, no worries, we got you.
Cool, man. Another selfish question. Any idea when you'll be shipping magazines again?
So they are in the process of working overtime in the carbon fiber shop like crazy right now. So we're really, really close to getting caught up to not just the number of guns leaving the shop, but actually having them in stock and ready to go. So we're working on those right now. They're also working on laying up some AI carbon fiber style magazines. So there's some big stuff coming out of our in-house carbon fiber shop. They're burning the midnight oil to be sure they can get caught up. So as soon as they're caught up, it should be in the next couple of weeks even, they should be ready to go and back up on the website.
Nice, man. Just because I ordered an extra one just to have, because you never know what happens, man. You don't want to lose that thing in the field.
Nope.
And then...
Yeah, everybody needs 2, right? Like it's just 2 is 1, 1 is none.
So another question too, like the spiral fluting on the barrel, is that an aesthetic choice or does that have performance implications?
Yeah, so it does a couple things for us. One is that spiral fluting is instantly recognizable, right? It's super easy to be like, hey, yep, that's a Seekins rifle. I can see that spiral fluting. The reason that it's a spiral flute is because I can remove more material because the cut is longer being a spiral, right? If it was just a straight flute, I don't get to remove as much material. So we actually save on the PH2s, we save like 1.25 pounds in weight by those spiral cuts. It's a lot.
Significant.
Right? On the elements like you have, it allows us to maintain a very pencil thin profile barrel, but those ridges of the flutes give us a ton of rigidity. Like one of the most common questions is how many rounds is it going to take me to zero this rifle? Because they've shot pencil thin barrels before and they get 3-5 rounds into it and that shot groups opens up because it's too hot. It can't maintain the same tolerances it has when it's cold, so they have to wait, let the gun cool down for an hour, come back, try again. But with that fluting on there, that maintains an extreme amount of rigidity. So even on your large caliber element, you can lay down and put 20-25 rounds in a row through it before the mirage coming off the barrel is the issue, not the gun opening up. So
that's good to know.
Yeah, so that's
because I try to let it cool down pretty well, but sometimes you can't. You don't have all the time.
Yeah, sometimes you can't, right? So particularly like here at work, if I'm shooting a bunch of stuff for R&D, or we got these 4 guns that the customers would like shot, like I want to be ripping through rounds super fast.
Yeah.
Making sure that everything is in line. They're shooting, their accuracy is performing the way I want it to perform before I get them out the door. And 10, 15 rounds out of an element is not unheard of in a row, super fast, like burning down. So, the reason for those ridges is to help maintain that rigidity. They also pretty close to double the surface area of the barrel, which allows that heat to dissipate just a little bit faster. Yeah. Okay. So those are the biggest reasons. Aesthetics for sure, but rigidity of the barrel and the cooling properties.
Cool. Is barrel break-in a real thing?
That's a loaded question. I get it every day. People ask me like, hey, what's the barrel break-in procedure for Seekins? And I tell them the same thing every time: shoot it like you stole it. Right? Get it out of the box, run a patch down it, be sure you don't got any packing gunk in there or whatever, and then shoot it like you stole it. Right? We use super, super hard steel. But certain people have certain things that they're always going to do, right? If you have a religious break-in process that is tried and true for you, like I'm not going to get in there and mentally screw with your head. Do it. If you shoot one, clean it, shoot one, clean it, shoot one, clean it, then shoot 5 and clean it or whatever, that's fine. If that's what gives you the mental edge that you need, run it, do that. But as far as all of the guns that I've shot and all the stuff that I do with them, half the time I'm on my way out to do an event for another company or a range day, and I'm getting a gun put together that morning right before I leave. It gets test fired, I accuracy tested in the tube, and I take it out and burn it to the ground. No break-in process, nothing. Just shoot the brakes off of it. And after I come back and it's had several hundred rounds put through it at a super hard pace, I'll lay down in the tube, shoot it for accuracy so that we're getting good data on, hey, we just treated this barrel like trash.
Yeah.
Let's see what it actually did. Still shoots very, very tight, very, very accurate groups. So I've done the super serious religious cleaning in the past, and I've done none of it. And the results have been, from what I've seen, the test sample that I have, which is not small. It's not like I only shot this one gun and then tried this with this one barrel. Like I got a pretty extensive test sample between prior service rifles that I shoot on the outside, Seekins guns, not Seekins guns, etc. And it seems to be the same, whether you go through a real big break-in process or whether you just shoot it right out of the box. Seems to be the same.
Well, cool, man. Well, this has been really good conversation. Definitely flew by. So, but where can people find you or find Seekins, or they want to find out more information, or get their hands on one even, or something like that?
Yeah, so you can always go to the website, www.seekinsprecision.com. We have all of our stuff there. All the small parts and accessories are still for sale on the website. It's just complete rifles that are going to like dealer direct right now. So when you click on a rifle, it'll actually open up and say, hey, where do you live? Here's 5 dealers that are in your area. You can pick one. You can go up there. You can get your hands on them. So we're working on it. It just allows us to get our product out the door and in the end user's hands a lot faster than going onesie twosie. So so we'll help you get there. If you have any questions, you can always find us on social media. It's Seekins _ Precision or Seekins Precision _
Seekins Precision _ official, right?
That's it. Yeah, Seekins Precision _ official. There's a couple other phony ones out there, but that's ours. You can get me at Maddie _ Nelson is my one. You're always welcome to DM me directly if you have a question about Seekins. Like I'm an open book. I'm easy to get a hold of on the socials. I'll get you an answer. I'll get you in touch with our customer service department. They'll get you an answer, whatever you need. Yeah. And that's how it works right now.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have any dealers on the East Coast or not, but when I had the thing shipped to my FFL, they were like, ooh.
They were like, well, give me the name. We'll give them a call and say, hey, this is what we do to get you set up. So it's a super simple process to become a dealer. A little bit of paperwork, and you're in there. That's all it is.
Cool. All right, man. Well, thanks again for your time. It's been a really good conversation. I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure to catch up with you. It's like we get to see each other, so I love being able to see you over the webs here. It's been great to catch up with you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, you too, brother. All right, we'll talk soon.
Yes, sir.